Hi, everybody. I'm Mina, and this is a short practice to mobilize the rib cage today. Um, the rib cage is a very complex part of our bodies, lots of tiny intercostal muscles. Also, the thoracic vertebrae are a little bit more complex than the other vertebrae. So, moving this part of our body, releasing it, helps us enormously in mapping out uh, the brain and therefore hopefully increasing well-being within our bodies. It's also part of our bodies where we lose mobility quite quickly, especially if you went through a pregnancy or multiple of those. When you're always carrying a child or two, you might feel some stiffness here, which can then again result in shoulder stuff, hip stuff, knee stuff. Okay. So we'll get started in a seated position. And we'll actually just map out the rib cage. So we have our collarbones here, and underneath is where the first rib starts, and all of the ribs in the front are connected through the sternum. You can feel the end of the sternum. And when we're babies, this part is still quite soft. It's originally cartilage, but the older we get, the more it ossifies. And these 12 ribs are kind of shaped like semicircles, apart from the last two, which are floating, and they come around and they connect to the vertebra. You can touch the top of the vertebra. The protruding one is mostly C7 for us, and then T1 starts underneath. So good. And these floating ribs, they connect strongly to the hips through the QL and other lower back muscles. And yeah, this houses our lungs, our heart, and diaphragm underneath. So it connects the upper chest cavity from the lower viscera. And now that we know what our rib cage looks like, you can bring your hands to the lower ribs. I like to bring the thumbs back and the four fingers forward. Oh, you can take a few deeper breaths here. So the hands being here doesn't mean that your shoulders need to be hiked up in any way. And we'll get a little bit more into diaphragmatic breathing. So in yoga, we often talk about belly breath. Also very important that the belly is soft. But at some point, especially, it's still dark. It's towards the end of winter. Some might say midwinter, but the days are getting longer here now, and seasonal affective disorder is a thing. And especially when your mood is low, it's good to breathe all the way up to underneath the collarbone, which has nothing to do with using your accessory muscles, your neck, and your upper chest. But because you breathe into the diaphragm, the lower belly is supported. The breath starts to move into the sides of the chest and also towards the back. And as you exhale, you can allow the ribs to soften. You can even pull your belly button in. Let's take a few deep breaths like this. Inhale. Breath moves all the way into the belly, but because of the support in the breath starts to move out into the sides, filling up. And exhale, release. Good. And through these few deeper breaths, you might already feel some movement in the rib cage. Last one. Inhale. And out. Good. Wonderful. Let's get into some Sufi grinds. You can change out the legs. And if you were sitting on something, you can get rid of it. Um, and we'll start to move in some classic Sufi grinds. So that means you can start to move your chest in one direction, feeling into your hips, your spine. And then for today, you can start to make the circles a little bit more focused on the chest. It's a little bit like belly dancing. You can think of the pelvis staying nice and centered and grounded, sits bones on the floor, maybe even the belly slightly engaged. And see if you can move just your rib cage. It's okay to move your shoulders. And if it's hard to isolate the chest, you can think of pressing to the side, Pressing from the front, pressing from the other side, and pressing up from the back. Good. And then let's change the direction. And if you want, you can go bigger full body circles just to get into the direction. And then you can start to make the circles again a little bit more small, a little bit more articulated from the chest. And I already start to feel all sorts of things. It's also good to challenge our bodies to move in patterns it doesn't normally do. Keeps us young, fresh. Maybe the movement is super small in your case. It's also perfectly fine. Sometimes it helps to bring the hand onto the sternum to give some impulse. This is where you want to move. And then maybe the movement starts to get a little bit bigger. Okay. And then let's slowly come into a child's pose. Can always have a blanket underneath the knees if your knees are sensitive. Knees wider or closer together, up to you. And you can release your forehead down. I'm going to stack my fist so I can talk a little bit better. There's also a variation where the spine isn't rounded so much. But I still have the support of my thigh somewhat underneath my belly so that the breath can move a little bit more freely into the back. The lungs are anatomically more on the back of the body, heart in the front. So taking time to feel the breath in the back of your body really helps us to maximize getting the movement. Good. And then let's go for a length in the spine. So I'd like to move into puppy pose. And if you're bendy, you might tend to, arch the back right away. But maybe coming onto your fingertips, you can release the forehead. But I'm going for maximum length. Tailbones reaching one direction, fingertips are reaching one direction. I'm wrapping my outer armpits towards one another. And I think about, on one hand, someone's pulling my hips back, someone's pulling my fingertips forward. And then using the breath to create even more space there. Because if everything is jammed into one another, we can't really stretch. But once we have space, we can create more movement, more prana can flow through. Let's take another breath in. And out. Good. Let's slowly come on to hands and knees. And we'll go for the ribcage favorite, thread the needle. So I'm going to leave my left hand there. Inhale, reaching the right fingertips out or up. And then exhale to thread it under. And we'll do this a few times dynamically. If you have issues with your sacrum, it might be nice to allow the hip to sort of move side to side so we don't put so much pressure on the sacrum. If you really want to feel the twist, you can resist slightly so the hips can stay more neutral as the upper body rotates. Good. Next time the shoulder is down on the floor, you can release the side of the head. You can always place a blanket or a block underneath the side of your head if you feel the floor is too far away. You can stay here or deepen this opening through the rib cage by walking the left fingertips forward and up. Right hand or the back of the hand can press slightly into the floor, and that will revolve the heart open. And I'm going for length again. My sits bones are moving back. My fingertips are moving forward like in the puppy pose just right now. And I'm breathing into my rib cage. Getting the sense that the shoulder blades are moving, they're sliding. And then I can keep my lower belly slightly active so that the breath moves more into the upper back. Good, slowly coming out, left hand in front of my face. And then I feel quite lopsided, so let's do the other side. Right hand stays there. Inhale, left arm out or up. And exhale to thread. Feel round at your own pace. And I definitely feel that one side is much more open to twisting than the other side. But with twists, it's quite complex, so we can't really tell like where it's coming from exactly. The spine, the shoulder, the hip, quite often multiple culprits. And then next time you can stay there. Again, make it comfortable. If you want to increase the space, walking the right fingertips above the head. And then no need to go right away in there. Take your time. Make space. Use the opposition of the hips backwards, fingertips forwards, back of the left hand pressing into the floor and the right shoulder blade gliding back. One more deep breath in. And out. Good. Right hand back in front of the face. Good. Let's just cat and cow to smooth everything out. Inhale, lift the heart. Exhale to round. Good. A few more. Wonderful. And then we'll meet in a downward facing dog. You can tuck the toes under, lift the hips up and back. And we'll go again into a twisty variation. Again, in your downward facing dog, especially if it's the first one of your day, you can always bend the knees. You can come higher onto the tippy toes. No need to release the heels towards the floor. You can make your dog also a little bit smaller, especially for this next one. You can make your dog a little bit smaller. I'm going to stay on my left hand, my right hand, with knees as much bent as you need to, holding on to the back of the left knee, calf, or ankle. And the more I bend my right elbow out towards the right side, the more I can feel, again, the shoulder blade slipping away from the spine, from the ribs. I'm going to pulsate a few times. Inhale back to center. Exhale to bend the elbow, twist, maybe gazing over the left armpit. Last one. Good. And then the other side, right hand onto the floor. Left hand goes crisscross to the outer right thigh, knee, calf, ankle. And again, the more I bend the elbow out to the side, the more I feel this twist happening in the upper spine, underneath the armpit. It feels nice. You can pulsate a few times. Good. And then coming back to your downward facing dog, stretch it out. Wonderful. And then you can come on to your hands and knees. And we'll take a side bend with the bolster. So this is a wonderful posture to stay in for quite a while. I'm going to bring my right side over the bolster. And depending on the bolster, this opening through the side of your body can be more or less. Also, depending on how you put your knees, can increase the sensation, decrease the sensation. And you can just allow this upper arm to just hang. Or you can again extend the left side of the body above the head, running into the wall here. Good. And, you know, these are postural muscles that are holding us up all day. So they will take some time to change their habits. So taking a few moments here to breathe space into your whole left rib cage. I'm seeing how it feels like to bend my elbow. And maybe that will uh, pull a little bit more on the fascia to the side of the body. You can see what feels good. And keep my arm extended here. So it's a great one for preggers. Can always create space to the side of the body. Nice. Stay here for up to 5 minutes. For today we're gonna slowly change sides. Actually, let's just do one more thing. Let's bring the elbow onto the shoulders, draw some circles. And I like to, move my body a little bit forward and back, um, so that I have both a side bend as well as a twist. And quite often in yoga, we move our bodies like our bodies are kind of matchboxes, perfect squares, but we're not. So in combining these movements or planes, we get to touch upon some of the tissues that get neglected when we move in a very, very linear way. Good. And then keeping the arm open for a moment, feeling some openness through the armpit, moving into the rib cage, the front of your chest. Whew. Good. And then slowly release. Just going to switch sides by coming up, flipping it around, lying on to the left side. Again, you can play around with the more the knee will come forward, the more of a twist I will be in, the knee stacked. This will all have a slightly different effect. I'm going to go with the knee stacked for this one. And then walk my fingertips away again. Head nice and heavy. And just breathing into the side of the rib cage. And sometimes you want to go for maximum intensity, but softness longer stays with softer holds can also change a lot in our body. But if you want to transition to the second variation, you can bring your hand onto the shoulders and start to draw some circles. Again, you feel like you can introduce a little bit of a twist as you open. Might even cross the leg here so the twist deepens. Combining different planes, get more complex movements. Wonderful. Next time I'm going to keep my arm open. Opening through the inner lines of the armpit. Wonderful. And then I'm going to slowly come up. Good. And I'm going to move into probably the deepest movement. So from sitting on my heels, I'm going to allow my hips to drop towards the right side. It's variation of Baddha Vajrasana, which is typically a twist. But we'll play around first of all with the side bend. If you need to sit up on something because your knees feel wonky or you feel you start to tense in your hips, you can do that. I want the tilting of the pelvis so that when I reach up and over with my right arm, left arm supporting me, then there's an even bigger opening through the whole right side from the QL, the belly, the rib cage. I'm going to cactus the arm to look up. And as I exhale, I'm going to round the spine. I'm going to come forward. So I'm going to do this a few times. Again, we're mixing a side bend with some twists. And these movements I find really, really therapeutic. Good. For the last round, I'm going to use my hand as a little weight on the other side. And you can linger in some of the spots that feel especially good. If it's too strong, keep the hand on the floor. Nice. And then we'll first go to the other side. And slowly hop your hips over to the other side again, sitting up on a blanket if you don't like this tilting of the hip. And then we'll start with a classic side bend first, going for a length, again reaching. From there, if you want to cactus, lifting the heart. Exhale, rounding the back and contracting a little bit. Good. I like to inhale to uplift the heart and to exhale around the back. If you want to, you can grab your arm and then linger in any of the places that feel good. Nice. Good. And then we'll slowly come back to the first side. I'm going to hop my hips over towards the right. And we'll combine this time flexion and a twist. So I'm going to bring the thighs and the belly closer towards one another, almost like I'm in a child's pose, but I'm off to the side. So it's a little bit weird. My right hand will naturally want to support the weight from collapsing over towards the right side. So I'm going to let that do that. I'm going to thread the arm under like in thread the needle. So it's like a combination of a weird child's pose with thread the needle. And you might feel all sorts of stuff happening in your spine. Good. You want to support your forehead with a block, you can do that. If it's super intense, and I know this can be for hips, for knees, some bodies just don't want to do that, in which case you can go for a variation with a bolster. You might have done this in a yin class. I'm going to sit on my right hip. The leg position really, really similar to where we started, but we're not going to fold over here. We're going to allow a little bit more space to drape over the bolster. My head and the knee go in the same direction. It's going to be a softer twist. My head moves away, and then it's going to be a slightly deeper twist. Good. So this is always an option. The reason I'm going for this one, which sort of looks similar, but it goes a little bit deeper because you're adding the element of a deeper flexion in the hips. So you're pulling a little bit more across your whole hip, your whole sacrum area. This is essentially making it a closed twist. Preparing for things like Marichyasana C, D, classic seated twists such as Ardha Matsyendrasana. Good. And then we're going to slowly come up and then switch sides. I'm going to show this variation with a deep reflection first. I'm going to sit over towards the left side. Feet are going to go out to the side. My left hand will want to naturally support me because I feel like coming off to the side. Then I'm going to thread the right arm under. Good. Again, if you want to support your head, if you look towards the left, then you can allow the head or the eyes to also guide the twist. If it's comfy here, of course, you can place a block under and stay for 5 minutes, allowing the whole body to slowly open up. If you want the variation with the bolster, a slightly softer approach, I'm just going to demo here. You're going to this time sit on the left side and then turn towards the bolster. Head and knee go in the same direction. It will be a more gentle twist. The head goes the other way. It will recruit more twists. Good. I'm going to come back into the first variation to finish it off. And whenever you feel stuck, instead of forcing your body with, the support of your hands, just breathing there. Sending the breath into all these meridian lines, side of the body, back of the body. Good, and then slowly come up. And we'll finish more with a heart opening posture to release the front of the rib cage. And can take the bolster sideways. And depending on the height of the bolster and the mobility in your rib cage, you might need a blanket, you might need a block to place underneath the head. I'm going to sit in front of the bolster and I'm going to lay myself so that the heart is open and the tips of my shoulder blades are pointing down. Can keep the knees bent and ask a friend to move the shoulder blade flesh downward so the tips of the shoulders can continue to point down. Maybe the knees bent, maybe legs extended, maybe a supta baddha variation. And wherever you are, sending breath now into the front of the ribs, the heart. We sometimes forget, that we're not just stretching a black box. There's not just muscles in the surface, but there's organs underneath. And this extremely intelligent myofascial system goes through all the organs, um, bypassing the vagus nerve, constantly giving back information about how safe we are, storing emotions. So taking this time to focus on softening through the organs as well, encouraging emotional softness, release, tenderness. Decluttering. If you feel great here on your back and you want to stay here for longer, you can do that. If you want to come into a more neutral position for a short shavasana, you can come rolling onto the side, get rid of the bolster, and then just lie flat back. Maybe you want to keep the blanket. I'm not mad at that. Just enjoying the blood rushing back into the heart. I'm going to place a hand on my belly, one on my heart. And just acknowledging that the body's not tight for no reason. It's trying to protect us. It's trying to process things.